War is often described as controlled violence. Maps are marked, coordinates are checked, uniforms are studied, pilots receive photographs, artillery crews receive grids, and soldiers are told exactly who stands on the other side. Then darkness falls. A radio fails, a flag disappears behind smoke, an officer reads the wrong coordinate. A nervous gunner sees movement and fires before asking what moved. The weapon usually works perfectly, the identification does not. These are 10 moments when military forces attack the wrong target. Some fired on their own commanders, some destroyed Allied units. Others reached the correct location only to discover that the people they came to rescue were somewhere else. The machinery performed as designed, it simply destroyed the wrong thing. Number 10. Stonewall Jackson was shot by his own soldiers on May 2, 1863. Confederate Lieutenant General Thomas Stonewall Jackson completed one of the most successful attacks of the American Civil War. At Chancellorsville, Virginia, Jackson's troops had marched around the exposed flank of the Union Army. They emerged from the trees late in the afternoon and struck the Union 11th Corps before it could form a proper defensive line. Thousands of Union soldiers fled. After sunset, Jackson rode forward with members of his staff to examine the ground. The forest was dark, Confederate units were disorganized, and rumors spread that Union cavalry was approaching. As Jackson's group returned through the trees, soldiers of the 18th North Carolina Infantry heard horses. They demanded identification. Before the answer could settle the confusion, muskets fired into the darkness. Jackson was struck 3 times, including twice in the left arm. Confederate surgeons amputated the arm, but pneumonia followed. He died 8 days later. Jackson had spent the day breaking the Union flank. His own defensive line stopped him permanently. Number 9. British warships fired at the wrong opponents during Jutland. On May 31, 1916, the British Grand Fleet and the German High Seas Fleet met in the North Sea. The Battle of Jutland involved approximately 250 warships. Smoke poured from funnels. Gunfire threw columns of seawater into the air. Ships maneuvered at long range while officers tried to identify gray silhouettes through haze. British Vice Admiral David Beatty's battlecruisers opened fire shortly before 4 in the afternoon. The target assignments immediately broke down. Several British ships concentrated on the same German vessels. Other German ships were left almost untouched. Most importantly, the German battlecruiser Derfflinger initially received no British fire at all. Derfflinger's gunners did not return the favor. Together with other German ships, she fired on HMS Queen Mary. German shells penetrated the British battlecruiser, reached its magazines, and triggered a massive explosion. Queen Mary broke apart. More than 1,100 men died. The British had brought more ships and heavier guns. For several critical minutes, some of those guns were aimed at the wrong hulls. Number 8. Allied guns shot down American transport aircraft over Sicily. In July 1943, Allied forces invaded Sicily during Operation Husky. The opening airborne landings had been scattered by strong winds. 2 nights later, American commanders sent another formation of transport aircraft toward the island. The mission carried paratroopers of the 82nd Airborne Division. The aircraft approached after Allied ships and ground positions had endured German air attacks. Anti-aircraft crews were exhausted. Many had received incomplete information about the incoming American formation. Then the first nervous guns opened fire. Other crews saw tracer rounds climbing into the sky and joined them. Within seconds, American ships and soldiers were firing at American aircraft. The transport pilots flew through a corridor of exploding shells and machine gun fire. Some tried to climb. Others turned away. Paratroopers jumped from damaged aircraft, landing in the sea or far from their assigned zones. Of the 144 transport aircraft involved, 23 were destroyed and dozens more were damaged. More than 300 American airmen and paratroopers were killed or wounded. The reinforcement formation had survived enemy territory. It was the welcome that destroyed it. Number 7. American bombers struck their own troops during Operation Cobra. By July 1944, Allied armies had escaped the Normandy beaches but remained trapped in dense hedgerow country. Operation Cobra was designed to break the German line near St. Lo. American heavy bombers would crush a narrow section of the front. Ground forces would then advance through the opening. The plan required precise coordination. On July 24th, some bombs fell short and struck American positions. The attack was halted and rescheduled for the following day. On July 25, hundreds of bombers returned. Smoke obscured the marker lines. Wind pushed dust across the battlefield. Some aircraft released their bombs before reaching the intended zone. Explosions began walking backward through American positions. Men who had been waiting to attack Germany were buried by American bombs. Lieutenant General Leslie McNair, one of the highest-ranking American officers killed during World War II, died in the barrage. More than 100 American soldiers were killed, with hundreds wounded. Operation Cobra still broke the German defenses. The road forward was opened. Part of it was paved through American units. That's number 6. British aircraft sank ships filled with concentration camp prisoners. On May 3, 1945, British Royal Air Force aircraft attacked ships in the Bay of Lübeck. Germany was collapsing. Allied commanders believed the vessels might be carrying German troops escaping toward Norway. Among the ships were Cap Arcona and Thielbeck. They were not carrying an organized German evacuation force. Their holds and decks were packed with thousands of concentration camp prisoners transferred from Neuengamme and its satellite camps. Many were weak, sick, and confined below deck. British fighter bombers attacked with rockets and cannon fire. Cap Arcona caught fire. Thielbeck rolled over and sank rapidly. Prisoners who escaped the burning compartments entered freezing water. Many could not swim. Others reached shore only to face armed guards or collapsing exhaustion. Thousands died. The pilots had been sent to stop enemy personnel from escaping. Instead, they killed people who had already survived the camps. Liberation was days away. The rescuing side arrived first as an air raid, number 5. Israeli forces attacked the USS Liberty. On June 8, 1967, the American intelligence ship USS Liberty operated in international waters near the Sinai Peninsula during the Six-Day War. The ship carried large identification markings and flew an American flag. Israeli aircraft had observed it earlier in the day. Later, Israeli forces received reports that an unidentified ship might have shelled positions near El Arish. The target was incorrectly assessed as an Egyptian warship moving at high speed. Israeli fighter aircraft attacked Liberty with cannon fire and rockets. Torpedo boats followed. One torpedo tore a large opening in the ship's side. 34 Americans were killed. More than 170 were wounded. Israel stated that the attack resulted from mistaken identity and apologized. Official inquiries accepted that explanation, although surviving crew members and later researchers continued to dispute parts of the official account. The controversy never fully disappeared. What is certain is simpler. For more than an hour, the forces of one American ally attacked an American naval vessel while believing it belonged to the enemy. The flag was correct, the conclusion was not. Number 4. The Son Tay raiders reached the correct prison too late. In November 1970, the United States launched one of the most complex rescue missions of the Vietnam War. Intelligence indicated that American prisoners of war were being held at Son Tay, approximately 23 miles west of Hanoi. The assault force rehearsed repeatedly. Pilots practiced flying at low altitude. Army Special Forces memorized a detailed model of the prison compound. More than 100 aircraft supported the operation. On November 21, helicopters crossed into North Vietnam. One group landed at the compound. Green Berets breached the buildings, killed or drove off defenders, and searched the cells. No prisoners answered. The camp was empty. The American P-bows had been moved months earlier, reportedly because of flooding. Intelligence received shortly before the mission suggested they might no longer be there, but the operation continued. The raiders withdrew after approximately 27 minutes. Every member of the ground force returned. Tactically, the mission was executed with extraordinary precision. Strategically, the men they came to rescue were absent. The force found the right prison. It had arrived in the wrong month. Number 3. Marines assaulted Koh Tang while the hostages were somewhere else. On May 12, 1975, Khmer Rouge forces seized the American container ship SS Mayaguez near Cambodia. The United States believed the ship's crew might be held on Koh Tang Island. Intelligence also underestimated the Khmer Rouge force stationed there. On May 15, American helicopters carried Marines toward the island. They expected limited resistance. Instead, heavy machine guns, rockets, mortars, and recoilless rifles struck the approaching aircraft. Helicopters were shot down or forced to crash land. Marines became pinned along narrow beaches while rescue aircraft struggled to reach them. The Mayaguez crew was not on Koh Tang. Cambodian forces had moved the sailors elsewhere and released them aboard a fishing boat as the American assault was beginning. They were recovered safely by a U.S. destroyer. The battle on Koh Tang continued for hours. 41 American service members died during the wider operation and its associated air missions. The hostages survived without being rescued from the island. The rescue force bled on an island that had never held them. Number 2. A fighter pilot bombed Canadian soldiers at Tarnak Farm on the night of April 17, 2002. Canadian soldiers conducted a live-fire training exercise near Kandahar, Afghanistan. Above them, 2 American F-16 pilots saw flashes on the ground. The flashes came from Canadian weapons firing into a designated training area. The pilots had not been properly informed about the exercise and believed the fire might represent an enemy threat. One pilot requested permission to attack. Controllers instructed him to hold fire. Seconds later, he declared self-defense and released a 500-pound laser-guided bomb. The weapon struck the Canadian position. 4 Canadian soldiers were killed. 8 were wounded. The aircraft had not been attacked. The ground fire was not directed toward it. The soldiers below were allies practicing for future operations. The bomb functioned exactly as intended. Its guidance system carried it into the center of the marked point. Technology removed nearly every possibility of missing. It could not determine whether the target deserved to be hit. Number 1. An American gunship attacked a hospital in Kunduz. On October 3, 2015, Afghan forces were fighting Taliban units in Kunduz, Afghanistan. American personnel were asked to strike a building believed to contain enemy fighters. The intended target was an Afghan government facility. An AC-130 gunship arrived with equipment problems, incomplete information, and a crew working under pressure. The aircraft's navigation system produced errors. The crew visually located a large building matching parts of the description. It was not the government facility. It was the Médecins Sans Frontières Trauma Hospital. The hospital's coordinates had previously been provided to American authorities and appeared on a protected no-strike list, but the information was not correctly matched to the building. The air crew was preparing to attack. The gunship opened fire. Patients burned in their beds. Medical staff were killed while treating the wounded. The attack continued through multiple firing passes before the mistake was confirmed. 42 people were eventually reported killed. The official American investigation described the strike as a tragic and avoidable accident caused by human error, equipment failure, communication breakdowns, and failures to follow procedure. No single mistake destroyed the hospital. Many small mistakes aligned. That made them more powerful than the gunship. These incidents occurred in different centuries, with different weapons and different uniforms. Muskets in a Virginia forest. Naval guns in the North Sea. Bombers over Normandy. Helicopters above Cambodia. A computerized gunship circling Afghanistan. The pattern remained familiar. Someone saw a shape and assigned it an identity. Someone received a coordinate and assumed it had been checked. Someone believed the target had to be hostile because friendly forces were not supposed to be there. War rewards speed. Identification requires patience. Those demands do not always survive together. A soldier can reload. A pilot can turn for another pass. A commander can issue a corrected order. The dead cannot be reassigned to the proper side. The greatest danger was not always that the weapon would miss. Sometimes, it was that the weapon would hit exactly where it was aimed.